More news here that's coming in from the Supreme Court. It has now issued a notice which is based on a petition which was wanting to strike down 119 statutes that discriminate against leprosy patients. The Supreme Court has observed in pointing out to the government why our leprosy patients continue to be shunned away, kept hidden away from sunlight, mainstream society in the 21st century today. Modern medicine which cures leprosy, despite that, myths surrounding, shed the age-old beliefs and fears about leprosy. This is, of course, a very strong statement here that's coming from the Supreme Court. This is based on a petition which was wanting to strike down 119 statutes that discriminate against leprosy patients, to strike them all down. Also, this word coming in from the Supreme Court in the wake of one of the leprosy patients having been turned away from pension because the Aadhaar could not take in the fingerprints. That being on the other issue, but it is along the lines of the same criteria of discrimination against leprosy. Our correspondent Meenakshi with further inputs on what this would mean on ground. We're going to be very quickly reconnecting with her, getting in more reactions as well. This could be a change that would require by society on ground. Our attitude as far as dealing with leprosy patients is concerned, but more importantly, these are 119 statutes that exist which need to be struck down on paper first. The Supreme Court has observed and asked the government, why are leprosy patients still being discriminated against? Why are they being shunned? This is the 21st century that we're looking at. 119 statutes that exist to discriminate against leprosy should be struck down. Today, there is a cure for leprosy. It should no longer be a case of leprosy patients being treated as outcasts. There is modern medicine to cure the disease. We should shed the age-old beliefs, the age-old fears surrounding leprosy as far as getting in the disease, contamination issues. All of that needs to be made clear. The real picture needs to be propagated to stop discrimination against leprosy patients. And this is in the form of 119 statutes that exist. They need to be struck down. And the government is now today being questioned about that. Why haven't they been struck down in all these years? The Supreme Court saying all of that based on a petition that is wanting the same. Our correspondent Meenakshi Bhanja with these inputs here. Meenakshi, please go ahead on what this means. Shamefully, these 119 statutes are already existing.
Well, absolutely, Seher, and that is really something which has bothered the Supreme Court today. This is a petition that has been filed by Vidhi India before the Apex Court, which is seeking to do away with these 119 statutes that exist across various aspects of jurisprudence from the center to the state. And today the Supreme Court has come out with some scathing observations. The Supreme Court has observed to the government as to why our leprosy patients are shunned, kept hidden away from sunlight and mainstream society. And this in the 21st century, when modern medicine has gone on to prove that it can cure leprosy effectively. And therefore, the Supreme Court has urged upon the government by way of this observation to shed more light so that these age-old beliefs and fears about leprosy can be addressed. But interestingly, this is a petition that has found resonance with the Supreme Court. It has gone ahead and sought the government's responses where the petition is seeking for these 119 statutes that discriminate against leprosy patients to be done away with.
That's right, and the government being questioned, but any time-bound deadline here that has been given, and how much time would the government need to respond on why these still exist?
Well, Seher, the government will respond in a few weeks' time. We are being given to understand. But the petition itself really assumes a lot of import because remember, this is an issue which perhaps is not in the mainstream as much. Not many people pay a lot of attention or heed to it. And with the Supreme Court now, posing these observations to the government, this will assume a lot of import going forward, Seher, because one, it will perhaps bring the issue to the forefront. It will generate a lot of scrutiny and debate, and also the Supreme Court putting this entire issue under its own scrutiny and scanner will ensure that the government and the other authorities come out with a more articulated response to this. The very fact that there are 119 statutes, Seher, which go on to discriminate against leprosy patients in present age is something perhaps not many of us knew. But today, with the Supreme Court making this observation that in present day, the 21st century, as it were, where modern science has proved to be effective in curing leprosy, why is it that there is so much stigma attached to a disease like leprosy, and the patients themselves are kept? These
age-old beliefs, and same goes for the statutes which need to be struck down. Meenakshi, thank you so much for getting us those inputs. A very significant word now that's coming from the Supreme Court on this issue.